Well, it's been a stunning operation militarily. This is just the United States and its partner Israel. They even had bombers in the United States that flew for 18 hours to drop 2,000 pounders.
What began as a routine investigation just uncovered something far bigger: leaked plans, foreign payments, and a countdown that's already ticking. This story is moving fast. Authorities have detained a special operations commander after investigators uncovered documents allegedly linking him to payments from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, along with what appear to be leaked operational strike plans. Even more alarming, sources claim the documents reference a 72-hour timeline.
The United States aims and intends to carry out a large-scale operation against Iran.
Iran says it is preparing a formal counter-proposal expected within the next 48 to 72 hours,
raising urgent questions about what was planned, who was involved, and whether this arrest may have just prevented something far bigger. Stay with us as we unpack the evidence, the connections, and why this 72-hour deadline could be critical. If you want the truth behind stories like this, then subscribe and stay with us. Who is the IRGC and why it matters? Before we get into the main story, we need to understand exactly what the IRGC is, because without that context, none of this makes complete sense. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, commonly called the IRGC or Sepah in Persian, is not your typical military branch. It was created in 1979 specifically to protect the Iranian Revolution and the ideology behind it. Over the decades, it grew into one of the most powerful and secretive military political organizations on Earth. From 2019 to 2025, Hossein Salami served as the IRGC's commander-in-chief, before being killed along with numerous senior officers during a wave of Israeli strikes in June 2025. That tells you how dangerous and volatile things have gotten at the very top of this organization. Multiple chiefs have been killed in the span of months. The leadership ladder has been shattered and rebuilt several times over. The IRGC doesn't just run soldiers. It controls massive portions of Iran's economy, operates proxy forces across the Middle East through groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and militia networks in Iraq and Yemen, and runs one of the most feared intelligence operations in the region. On 29th of January 2026, the EU formally designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization. That designation came after years of pressure, and it tells you how the international community now views this group. This is the organization at the center of our story today. Meet Esmail Qaani, the man with 9 lives. Esmail Qaani is 67 years old, born in Mashhad, Iran, and has spent most of his adult life inside the IRGC. He joined the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps in 1980, and during the Iran-Iraq War, he led the 5th Nasser Brigade and the 21st Imam Reza Armored Brigade. He was the kind of soldier who never grabbed headlines, but always got the job done in the shadows. After the war, he joined the IRGC's Quds Force and focused on Iranian priorities in the east, including combating drug smuggling and supporting Afghanistan's Northern Alliance in its battles against the Taliban during the Third Afghan Civil War. He was a builder of networks, patient, careful, and deeply embedded in operations that regular military brass never touched. Qaani succeeded Qasem Soleimani as Quds Force commander after Soleimani was assassinated in a U.S. drone strike in January 2020. That's when the world started paying attention to him. Soleimani had been Iran's most charismatic and feared military figure, almost a celebrity among Iran's allies in the region. Qaani was different, quieter, lower profile, harder to track. He stepped into an almost impossible role, trying to hold together an entire regional network while being hunted by some of the world's most sophisticated intelligence agencies. The pattern that started the suspicion. Here is where things start to get genuinely strange. Across the last 2 years, Esmail Qaani has survived a series of high-profile strikes and incidents that killed every senior Iranian or Iran-linked official around him, and he walked away each time without a scratch. In September 2024, Qaani was believed to have been killed in an Israeli attack on Beirut, along with Hassan Nasrallah's successor, Hashim Safieddin. However, Qaani resurfaced the day after Safieddin's assassination. A week earlier, He had escaped another meeting in which Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah was assassinated. Think about that for a second. He was in or near the room before both of those meetings, and both times the key figures died, and he somehow wasn't there when the strike hit. Reports claim that Khani was the last official to meet with the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei before his death, and was also reportedly the last official to meet with Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, both of whom died in Israeli strikes shortly after those meetings. To intelligence analysts watching from outside, a pattern like that raises questions. To the IRGC watching from inside, a pattern like that becomes deeply alarming. In the world of military intelligence, surviving when everyone else dies is not always seen as luck. Sometimes it's seen as something much darker. The strike on Khamenei and Khani's disappearance. On February 28, 2026, U.S. and Israeli forces launched a sweeping and devastating attack on Iran. Among the targets was the highest possible one, the compound of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself. Israeli officials assessed that the commander of Iran's IRGC, General Mohammad Pakpour, was likely killed in those strikes. In addition, officials assessed that Iran's Minister of Defense and Chief of Intelligence were also likely killed. The attack struck the very heart of Iran's power structure in a single coordinated blow. According to Arab media reports, Esmail Khani left the Beit Rabari, the office and residential compound of the Supreme Leader in central Tehran, just minutes before a massive airstrike leveled the complex, killing Khamenei and other top Iranian political and military leaders. Everyone who stayed behind died. Khani, for the 9th time by some counts, was somewhere else when the missile hit. According to unofficial sources and reports circulating in the media, Khani has since disappeared from the public scene again. No official statement, no public appearance, no confirmation of his whereabouts. For an organization as tightly controlled as the IRGC, that kind of silence can mean many things, none of them reassuring. The detention reports, what we know and what we don't now. We get into the part of this story that is actively developing and, we want to be very clear here, has not been officially confirmed by the Iranian government. But that doesn't mean it isn't being widely reported by credible regional outlets and analysts who follow the IRGC closely. Iran's IRGC Quds Force commander Esmail Khani has reportedly been detained. Khani is suspected of spying for Mossad, Israel's national intelligence service, according to foreign media reports. There has been no official confirmation from Iranian authorities. Multiple Arabic-language media outlets, UAE-based news organizations, and regional intelligence analysts all began reporting this story within days of the February 28th strikes. Khani was reportedly taken into custody on March 2nd, just 24 hours after the strike on the Supreme Leader. During a closed-door interrogation, he was reportedly grilled on how he managed to evade the circle of fire that claimed the lives of Iran's clerical elite. Sources quoted in various reports suggested that within the IRGC's intelligence wing, the conclusion being reached was that his survival was not coincidental, that it was the result of an arrangement with foreign intelligence. That is a devastating accusation against a man who built his entire career inside the Revolutionary Guard. The IRGC payment trail, funding operations abroad. To understand why financial leaks and payment records would be so damaging, you need to know how the IRGC funds its network. The U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned Khani in March 2012, freezing his presumed assets and prohibiting transactions with U.S. entities. The U.S. targeted Khani specifically for overseeing the distribution of Quds Force funding to regional allies. In other words, money movement was always at the center of his job. The Quds Force doesn't just coordinate military strategy, it is Iran's primary tool for financing proxy groups, funding sleeper cells, and paying operatives across the world. These payments are structured to be difficult to trace, routed through informal networks, front businesses, and at times carried in cash across borders. If someone inside the IRGC was feeding intelligence on those financial channels to an outside party, the damage would be enormous. It would expose not just current operatives, but the entire logistical architecture of Iran's regional influence. When Qatar arrested 10 suspects linked to 2 IRGC cells in early March 2026, investigators seized communications equipment, as well as data and coordinates tied to sensitive facilities. During investigations, The suspects admitted to their affiliation with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and to being assigned espionage and sabotage missions. This shows that even within countries Iran considered friendly, the IRGC's internal security was compromised. The fact that these arrests happened so close in timing to the broader collapse of IRGC leadership suggests the organization was leaking from multiple places at once. What leaked strike plans actually means. One of the most serious elements of this story involves the allegation that strategic targeting information, essentially, where Iranian commanders would be at specific times, was being passed to outside parties. Let's be very careful here. This has not been proven. What we can say is that the circumstantial pattern is striking enough that the IRGC itself apparently launched an internal investigation. Following Israel's devastating penetration of Hezbollah, which allowed it to systematically eliminate the group's leadership, Iran launched a formal security breach investigation. Unnamed sources across the region told regional outlets that Khamenei and his team were placed under isolation and interrogation. Isolation and interrogation inside the IRGC is not a gentle process. It means the organization genuinely believed there was an active source at or near the top. Analysts suggest that internal suspicions may stem from leaks enabling precise targeting of Iranian assets, though no concrete evidence has linked Khamenei to such breaches. The question that Iranian security officials were apparently asking was simple. How does Israel keep knowing exactly where to strike? The Hezbollah communications network was dismantled in a single operation. Hassan Nasrallah was killed in a precise bunker strike. Mohammed Pakpour, the IRGC chief, was eliminated on the opening day of the February 2026 war.
Mohammed Pakpour eliminated in Israeli strikes is what we're being told. We'll try and get you a report on this as well, but he's a top commander who has been killed in the strikes, and this claim has been made by Israel.
The accuracy of these strikes, many analysts argued, required inside knowledge. Mossad's strange response. Here is one of the most unusual moments in this entire saga. When rumors about Khamenei's possible cooperation with Israeli intelligence started gaining real traction, the official Mossad account on X posted something very short and very deliberate. The official Farsi-language Mossad account on X declared that Brigadier General Esmail Khani is not our spy, brushing aside months of Western speculation that the Iranian general had been flipped by Israel's intelligence service. The six-word post, "Khani is not our spy," appeared under the handle at Mossad spokesman. Now, intelligence services don't normally comment on these things at all. Issuing a public denial is itself unusual, and doing it in Farsi, the language read by Iranians, made it feel almost like the denial was aimed at an audience inside Iran more than outside it. Observers note that Mossad has occasionally issued tongue-in-cheek denials regarding alleged agents, including a statement brushing aside claims about Khamenei, and such responses aim to sow confusion rather than confirm or refute intelligence ties. Think about it from a strategy perspective. If you want someone inside an enemy organization to remain under maximum suspicion, the best thing you can do is publicly deny they work for you, because the more convincingly you deny it, the more suspicious it looks to the people interrogating them. Whether or not Khamenei was ever a genuine source of intelligence, Mossad's response to the rumors did nothing to help him inside Iran. The Qatar IRGC cell, a sign of how far the rot had spread. The Qatar arrests deserve their own chapter because they paint a picture of just how extensive and simultaneously how compromised the IRGC's external network had become by early 2026. Qatar announced the arrest of 10 suspects accused of having links to 2 cells operating on behalf of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. 7 had been assigned to gather intelligence on military and vital facilities inside the country, while the remaining 3 had a more sinister brief, sabotage, and had undergone drone training. Qatar isn't a hostile country toward Iran. For years, it served as one of the key mediators between Tehran and Washington. The fact that the IRGC had infiltrated it with operational cells says a lot about how widely the organization had spread its network. Analysts explained that the 3 allegedly tasked with sabotage were likely special forces operatives trained to pilot drones, possibly in an attempt to mirror the tactics used by Israel and the US in their assault on Iran, where drone swarms were deployed to overwhelm air defenses. So Iran was preparing, inside a friendly country, to potentially use drone tactics it had just experienced on the receiving end. But those operatives were arrested before they could act, with their communications exposed and their coordinates logged. The timing, just days after the February 28th strikes and Kwani's reported disappearance, is something intelligence watchers are watching very closely. The 7 accused of espionage were almost certainly gathering intelligence on critical infrastructure. One analyst noted the IRGC really excels at a process of state capture, in which a small group manages to exert outsized influence in a state and tilt its policies away from broader national interests. And yet this time, the entire infrastructure was blown open, not from the outside, but apparently from leaks within. The new IRGC commander, a darker replacement. While all of this chaos was unfolding, Iran needed a new leader for the IRGC. The organization had lost 3 commanders in under a year. Mohammad Pakpour, the most recent IRGC chief, was killed during the opening phase of the joint Israeli-US attacks on February 28th. Pakpour had been appointed only after Israel killed his predecessor, Hossein Salami, during the 12-day war in June 2025. Ahmad Vahidi has now taken command of Iran's Revolutionary Guards.
Now serve as Iran's interim supreme leader of Iran, while Ahmad Vahidi has been designated as the new commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC.
His appointment as the new IRGC chief is not surprising. In December, the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei had named him deputy chief. But Vahidi is not a figure who inspires reassurance in the international community. He carries a long and deeply troubled history. In 2022, the U.S. Treasury redesignated Vahidi for his oversight of all law enforcement forces deployed to subdue protests in Iran, which resulted in thousands of deaths. At the time, as Iran's Minister of Interior, he not only shut down access to the internet, but green-lighted violence against peaceful protesters. And there is more. He oversaw the 1994 terrorist attack on the Argentine Israelite Mutual Association, AMIA, Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, which killed 85 people and wounded hundreds more. It was the deadliest attack in Argentina's history. Interpol maintains a red notice for Vahidi for his alleged role in the bombing. This is who is now running the IRGC, a man with an Interpol red notice, walking into a fractured organization suspected of internal betrayal, with a war raging on multiple fronts. The FBI's warnings and the U.S. side of the story. This story doesn't stay inside Iran. The American dimension is just as serious and has been building for years. In December 2025, the FBI warned that Iran's efforts to retaliate for the death of Soleimani remain active. FBI Operations Director Michael Glashin said Iran continues to plot attacks against former U.S. officials, support proxy groups such as Hezbollah, and conduct surveillance of Jewish and Israeli targets in the United States. Glashin reported that the FBI has made more than 70 arrests linked to hostile foreign intelligence activity since Trump took office in January 2025 and has disrupted several alleged Iranian-linked plots. 70 arrests. That is a staggering number, and it tells you that the IRGC's network inside the United States was far more extensive than most people realized. These were not random criminals. They were operatives embedded in American cities, gathering information, making preparations, and waiting for instructions. The IRGC commander believed to be the mastermind behind multiple thwarted plots against Donald Trump during the 2024 campaign and into early 2025, including the recruitment of assets like Farhad Shakeri and Pakistani operative Asif Merchant, was reportedly tracked down and killed in a targeted strike. These assassination plots against a sitting U.S. president were not fantasy. The Department of Justice charged real people in connection with them. So when we talk about leaked strike plans and IRGC payments, we are not talking about abstract geopolitics. We are talking about money that funded operations targeting specific individuals on American soil. The internal purge, paranoia at the top. What happens inside an organization like the IRGC when it suspects a senior commander of espionage? The answer is not a clean investigation with due process and evidence standards. The answer is a rapid, brutal internal purge, and the people caught in it don't always get the chance to prove their innocence. Sources suggest that the Revolutionary Guard became convinced that County's survival was not a matter of luck, but the result of a deal with foreign intelligence. Despite his years of service as the successor to Qasem Soleimani, the IRGC High Command concluded that the level of security breaches under his watch pointed to a deliberate betrayal. Whether or not that conclusion was correct, once the IRGC reached it, the outcome was almost predetermined. A former Iranian Interior Ministry official told Iran International that the violent crackdown on Iran's protests was part of a multi-layered process planned by the regime since 2022, and that ideological and psychological training to kill, including firing final shots at protesters, was systematically implemented. An organization capable of that kind of systematic violence against its own citizens is not going to be gentle with a senior general it believes sold secrets to Israel. The atmosphere inside the IRGC right now, according to multiple regional analysts, is one of extreme paranoia, where survival itself is being treated as evidence of guilt. Analysts suggest that internal suspicions may stem from leaks enabling precise targeting of Iranian assets. Previous rumors about Kwani's fate, including detention or injury during interrogations in late 2024, were later countered by appearances or official statements. So he had survived suspicion before. The question this time is whether the stakes are too high and the evidence too damning for another reappearance to put the matter to rest. The 72-hour deadline. What does it actually mean? You may be wondering where the 72-hour deadline in our title comes from. It refers to a concept that intelligence analysts and military observers have been discussing in relation to Iran's post-strike situation. The window in which Iran's new leadership had to consolidate control, deal with internal security threats, and make critical decisions about retaliation before the geopolitical situation shifted again. After the February 28th strikes took out Khamenei, Pakpour, and multiple other senior officials simultaneously, Iran faced a genuine command and control crisis. Decisions had to be made within hours, not days, about who was in charge, who could be trusted, and who needed to be neutralized before they could cause further damage. The 72-hour period immediately following a catastrophic leadership decapitation is, in military doctrine, the most vulnerable window for any organization. For the IRGC specifically, this meant rapid interrogations, emergency security protocols, and decisions about personnel that under normal circumstances would take weeks of investigation. Reports suggesting Kwani was taken into custody on March 2nd, just 24 to 48 hours after the main strikes, fit precisely within that emergency window. Whatever happened to him, it happened fast, in the middle of a crisis, with very little time for careful deliberation. The regional fallout. How this changes the IRGC's network. Even if we set aside all the unconfirmed details about Kwani's fate, the broader picture is clear. The IRGC's regional network is in severe distress. The proxy architecture that took decades to build has been systematically dismantled over the past 2 years. Hezbollah lost its entire top leadership, including Hassan Nasrallah, in Israeli strikes. Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated. Vahidi now faces the challenge of rebuilding the Revolutionary Guards when many of its key leaders have been eliminated by Israeli precision strikes. Some of the IRGC's proxies have been degraded, or in some cases their leadership has been decapitated. In Azerbaijan, security investigators said Iranian nationals linked to Azerbaijani citizens had direct ties to the IRGC, in addition to involvement in trafficking networks. An IRGC intelligence officer named Ali Asghar Bardbar Sharamini was named as the planner and coordinator of operations that included assassination plots targeting Jewish residents of Azerbaijan. What this tells us is that even while facing catastrophic losses at the top, the IRGC was still attempting to run aggressive foreign operations, targeting civilians, planning sabotage, embedding operatives in countries that were supposed to be partners. That aggressive posture, combined with hollowed-out leadership and suspected internal leaks, is a dangerous combination. Iran's most secretive special operations force is facing an unprecedented crisis. A top commander is reportedly detained for espionage. The IRGC has lost 3 chiefs in under a year, cells were busted in Qatar, and operatives linked to U.S. assassination plots were arrested. Now a commander under an Interpol notice must rebuild amid war. Drop your thoughts below. Was Khani truly a Mossad asset, or is this IRGC paranoia? And if this made you think, subscribe for more stories. The mainstream news cycle often moves past too quickly.